Welcome to Straight from the Source with Hayley Watts. Today our guest is Mike Walcott, the editor-in-chief for the Chico Enterprise Record. And really, it's a kind of a larger group than just that, right?
It is. We're owned by a company called Media News Group, which has over 200 newspapers all over the country.
Okay.
Locally, we're part of what's called the NorCal division of that. We've got 12 newspapers in NorCal, and part of my job is to kind of service the coordinating editor for all of those newspapers, which run from Monterey and Santa Cruz up to the Oregon border.
And specifically in our area, I mean, the Red Bluff Daily News, right? The Paradise Post, Oroville, Mercury-Register, that's all you.
Exactly. That's all part of what we do here in Chico. The Red Bluff Daily News has its own editor, Rick Silva, who was the editor at the Paradise Post before the Camp Fire basically wiped everything out up there. But yeah, that's all part of what we do in Chico, and we work with them very closely on things.
So you being a journalist, what got you started in this career field?
It was a combination of two things. I loved sports and I loved to write, and had a couple of high school English teachers encouraged me in that direction. And the summer before my senior year in high school, I had my first byline. I've pretty much been doing this ever since.
So it's interesting. I would say maybe 50% of candidates for our reporter jobs, they tell me, oh yeah, I like news, I like local news and everything, but I really want to do sports.
Yeah.
For you, that's kind of what you started out with.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, like you said, it's a really common thing. And I know a lot of really good journalists here in my years in the Bay Area or whatever who started just like I did, covering high school sports and just having a ball. You get into the games for free and you're there in the atmosphere and everything. And then from there, they'll do a few years and kind of go into different directions like I did. But it's a great way to get a start.
And of course, sports is so important, of course, covering sports. I know that us versus Channel 7 are competition. They don't have like the high school football show that we do on Fridays. So the football
watch it
season.
often.
Oh yeah. And it means so much to families and people, even if their kids don't play football, they watch under the lights. And so for me, I competed in sports in high school and everything. I love athletics, but I'm not a big sports fan. So sometimes I kind of laugh and think, well, is it news? But it is, because it's what our community cares about, right?
Exactly. It's in so many of the towns that you feature on that and that we cover games in, people look forward to it all week, and that's the community gathering thing every week is the Friday night under the lights. And no, I know myself and Justin Couchot are really hardworking, talented sports writer. We both spend a fair amount of time watching the show and just say, hey, did you see this? And we'll be texting each other back and forth on what we might have missed or saw. So
Howie and Matthew are kind of goofballs.
Yeah, and that's been the fun, is just seeing the different people you've had do that through the years, and you had some really good ones. And
remember Jenna Fink?
Absolutely, she was fantastic.
Yeah,
no, she was. Justin and I said, wow, she's really good at this, and she's going to go places, and I guess she has.
Yeah.
So I was like,
Yep, she's in Arizona now.
Yeah.
So my question for you is, I guess, with the sports background, how has, now that you oversee all news, right, not just sports, how has your, I guess, ideas about journalism and why it matters, has that shifted at all, or have you kind of like gained some more perspective looking at news, the bigger picture? Yeah,
it definitely, working in sports for a daily newspaper, be it as a writer or reporter, or on a copy desk and design desk at a bigger newspaper. I worked at the San Francisco Chronicle for 8 years, largely in sports. And on one hand, you get really, really good at deadline.
Yeah.
Because say at the Chronicle, we were dealing with the A's and Giants and Sharks and Warriors and Raiders and everything going on. And the game would end and you might have 20 minutes to wrap everything up in the section. And that kind of skill is something that every newspaper wants, the ability to be able to work quickly under pressure and turn it around.
Yeah.
And a long-standing joke in the Bay Area on election night, newspapers would often ask the sports desk to put the newspaper out on election night because it's just another night.
Right.
And that deadline background really played a big part in helping me different jobs through the years. But also it's all news, it's all community, it's what people care about, it's what people talk about. And again, a lot of the best reporters I've worked with through the year, including a few here in Chico, that's how they got their start, was sports. It's a pretty common thing.
So for you, what is your philosophy? What is your theory about why does journalism matter?
Wow, that's a question. The answer's probably changed in my head a little bit through the years since I started. I know my first byline was a couple years after Watergate. And people looked at journalists and newspapers, I think maybe in particular, and our public opinion rating was, it was pretty high. It was a really highly thought of career for people to go into. Now, for a lot of reasons, we're down there with Congress in terms of our rankings, unfortunately. And a big way it's changed is when I got into the business, I never saw a day where, if you were more liberal or more conservative, you could find an outlet that would tell you the news pretty much the way you wanted to hear it.
Yeah.
That's a challenge, but as I tell my staff, it's an opportunity. Because I do hear from people all the time that appreciate the fact that we try to do balance. The one thing I tell my staff every chance I get is get it right and be fair. That's our job. And it's refreshing to our readers to get that. And every week I kind of hear three things. I hear we're too liberal, I hear we're too conservative, and then there's that third group that tells me, I appreciate the fact that you're balanced, and by the way, I can't figure out what you are. And that means a lot to me, because when I got started in this anyway, that was kind of the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always find that to be a compliment as well,
Exactly,
when someone
yeah.
tells me that they're trying to figure out like which way I lean personally. And I mean, for me, the honest truth is I have people I really love and respect in all different camps. I hear them out.
Yeah.
I continue my view on whether it be politics or any issues continues to evolve and be shaped by what I learn. So I really don't have a camp myself, but that's what I'm hoping in our reporting, not just me personally, but all of our coverage. I hope that we come across that way, is that we're people in the community investigating issues
Exactly.
and trying to bring you information and not convince you of anything.
Right,
That's
exactly.
our goal.
No, exactly. It's same here. And old saying in our business, if both sides are mad at you, you're probably doing your job right.
Yes.
And I believe that to a degree, but I really appreciate, especially in Chico, there's a lot of people that appreciate the fact that we try to get all sides. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's not just two sides,
Yeah.
but we try to cover everything that's fair and let different voices be heard.
So as the leader of your news organization, though, have you had times where you've had people on your staff where you've kind of had to remind them of this, or do you feel like you have a team of people who are kind of the same mind?
There are, that's a great question. I mean, and it's one I get asked a lot by the public, and particularly they might say, how come you can't find more young conservative journalists? Or they'll ask it the other way too. And I always say, look, I don't want to hire a reporter with no opinions on anything.
Yeah.
For one thing, anybody who doesn't have opinions isn't going to try to get into this business, especially today, I think. So there are times it comes up, and I just go back to that same old saying, you get it right and be fair.
Yeah.
And if myself or our city editor, whoever might be editing a story, if we feel it's too slanted one way or the other, we'll bring it up and we'll discuss the importance of it. And we do that every story, every day. But yeah, things come up, as
Yeah.
they would in any business. As the leader of a newsroom or organization, you try to set up the guardrails and keep people between
Right.
it. And in my case, I'm just really appreciated that we have such a hardworking staff that
Yeah.
loves what they do so much. And honestly, in that regard, we don't have very many worries these days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me get your take on this. So in terms of just like a culture of freedom of speech in the newsroom versus being respectful and unbiased, do you have any sort of policy about like what people, in terms of talking about religion, talking about politics in the newsroom behind closed doors, right? This isn't in the
Right.
reporting, but being very opinionated. Do you have any sort of restrictions or policies on what people can and should talk about?
On a national level, we have corporate policies for that sort of thing, one of which is on social media. We do have a social media policy, which is basically, for God's sakes, be
yeah.
careful what you post.
Yeah.
And as I tell everybody, be it politics or religion or whatever, readers will look for that. And once you get a reputation, good luck ever getting rid of it.
Right.
Because, and we've gone down this road several years, as any newspaper I think has, is people who might have one set of political beliefs might be angry with a story a reporter wrote, and they'll run to their Facebook page or their Twitter, and they'll screenshot stuff, and then it's
yeah.
all over town. And then I get it. It's like, are you okay with this? And it's a tough spot for us to be in. But my biggest concern is just, for the integrity of the newspaper and the reporter.
Yeah.
It's like I keep going back to that line. Once you get a reputation that way, good luck getting rid of it, because you won't.
Yeah.
So we really try to keep keep a good, smart path that direction. And as far as in the newsroom, if we're in a chat. You know, we do a lot of work remotely, and we're communicating on chat, on GChat a lot. And sometimes you kind of got to put the brakes on saying, okay, we know
That's something.
this isn't why we're here. So yeah.
It's something that I don't really have the answer to, and I've gone back and forth. And speaking with members of our team here, I think that there's really something wonderful to be said about editorial conversations, right?
Yeah.
Because everybody has specific feelings, whether you identify with a certain political party or religion. Fine, everybody has their own things. Nobody's completely unbiased, right? Because we have our unique histories and backgrounds. And I think that it's great to have conversations because it brings different insight and input into what we're covering, how our viewers might feel. However, I've heard suggestions from others saying, no politics in the newsroom ever, right? Because you don't want to be perpetuating certain opinions. And so it's something that I struggle with. I don't really have a policy about it, except for let's all try to respect each other.
Well, exactly, and that's what it all needs to come back. And a great experience for me was the years I worked at the San Francisco Chronicle. You know, I'm a country boy from Flournoy, California, up there in west of Corning in Tehama County. And then I'm working at the big city newspaper. And there are all kinds of different beliefs and thoughts and opinions on everything. But it was a great experience for me because I think, as well as any place I've ever worked, different opinions were valued. And it didn't matter if you were Republican or Democrat or which kind of view you took. People were very curious about what your beliefs were and why you felt a different way. And that to me was like just an experience I try to model in our newsroom. And yeah, people are going to talk, they're going to have opinions, but when the little bell goes off in your head like, this is getting too far, or it's kind of a distraction, or I can sense hard feelings maybe coming from this, you know, then it's time for a talk to keep it professional. Yeah.
So I'm curious about what influences your reporting, your team members' reporting, because I know for us, so we are individual reporters, they go out and cover stories, and I know my team. They're just going out into the community. They're doing interviews. They don't have an agenda. These reporters, they're not trying to convince the community of something. But of course, within our newscast, we're an affiliate of CBS and of NBC, and we have a contract with CNN to content share. Okay. So a lot of times viewers will watch like a story, a report that's produced by a network reporter, and they'll say, you guys are so biased because X, Y, Z, and you know, sometimes I look back at those stories and I think that did have a certain slant to it. It wasn't done by my reporters, but we pulled it, we put it into our show, so we're responsible. Right. Now, for you do have an ownership group, right? But none of your reporting is coming from that ownership group, or some of it is?
Well, a couple different ways. For one, for national news, we use mainly Associated Press. Okay. And I probably get more complaints about AP being biased than I do our own staff being biased. In fact, I'm sure of that. We are able to use stories from any newspaper in our group we want to. And in NorCal, we will share certain things. You know, at the Eureka Time-Standard is one of our paper, and they may have a story. They may let us know, hey, a guy from Chico got arrested over here doing this. Oh, thanks. Yeah, we'll pick that story up, and we share that a lot. And now the Santa Rosa Press Democrat is part of our company too, so we'll be sharing more stories with them. So yeah, we do a fair amount of that, and that's a factor for us. It's mainly AP. Yeah. We will hear about them.
We get complaints about AP too. I've definitely read some AP stories that have appeared on our website that were just copy pasted, and I've had to say, let's take a second look at that story. I think that Associated Press is full of fabulous journalists, probably trying their best. But,
absolutely are. Yeah.
But humans are humans, and sometimes their bias shows through in certain stories.
They do, and there's been cases, and I'm blessed in that we've got a lot of loyal readers, and there's a good number that aren't shy about reaching out to me if they don't, and they'll do it in a friendly way, And I remember one conversation I had about one story. I remember it was a homelessness related story, and it's like, oh, this is just terrible. You're so slanted this way, and the whole story's about this. And in that case, I was so, like, no, I know we did this right. I actually went through and did a word count, and it was like a 820 word story, and 412 words were from this side and 408 were from the other. I'm like, do you want me to add 2 more words and make it exact? Right. I mean, no one story is ever going to be perfect that way in a lot of eyes. But I ask people, look at the totality of what we do week in and month out.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's how you get a better idea of the fair and balanced picture that we try to do.
Yeah. What do you think our country would be if we didn't have the freedom of the press?
Oh, geez. Just, I mean, it wouldn't be our country. I mean, and that's, you know, any newspaper I've worked at, the First Amendment's up on the wall.
Yeah.
And it's a good reminder for us. And, you know, we seem to hear every election cycle. It's the most important election of our life. And,
Yeah.
and to the people involved in supporting the candidates and running, they believe it. You know, and our job, you know, be it that or the local thing or local things going on, you know, we're the eyes and ears. You know, we're doing something nobody else does. And it's just, I feel blessed to be in Chico where, you know, we've got a really good local TV station and we've got a really good local newspaper. And I do wonder, what would it be like without us? Who would cover the football games? Who would cover the city council meeting where, because almost anybody else would do it through their lens, and this is the narrative we want to get out.
Right.
And without us, you know, that's a pretty frightening thought.
Yeah, I think it's such a cool thing as well because I grew up in this little town called Agora Hills, which is northern LA County, right? Mm-hmm. So our coverage, we did have a paper, the Acorn, right? Okay, so we had some reporters on the ground who would do newsprint stories. But the TV news, if you want to see TV news in LA County, you're watching a network, right? Or one of the big ones. You're watching KTLA or something that they're focused on Los Angeles, right? Not Agora Hills. You're not going to see a city council meeting on TV. So I just think it's the coolest thing that we get to cover these smaller cities, these smaller communities, put the high school football players on television on Friday nights and that sort of thing. It's a blessing to be in this community and to have that local news coverage, I think, too.
Absolutely. And not every town, even bigger than Chico, has either these days. You know, it's the most recent figure I've heard is the past 25 years, 3,000 newspapers in the United States have gone out of business.
Yeah.
Most of them were weeklies, but maybe 15, 20% of them probably were dailies.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of towns, a lot bigger than Chico, that don't have a daily newspaper anymore.
Right.
And, you know, again, we're blessed. Our print readers are hardcore. You know, they stick with us. I hear every week when people say, I will never give up my printed paper. I have to hold it in my hands and read it. I don't want to read it on my phone or on my laptop. And the flip side of that is our numbers in those arenas keep going up too.
Yeah. I know people are still reading. It's funny, I jog early-ish mornings, and in the wintertime, the time that I go out, it's dark outside, right? And there was this one time when I had just moved to my new neighborhood. I was certain that I was being followed, that there was somebody coming for me. I was like hiding in driveways. This car wouldn't stop chasing me. And I finally just took a deep breath and turned around and I looked, and somebody tossing papers up the driveways. And now I see the same person and I wave every day. But yeah, and it's cool. I love that people are getting the paper delivered to them. But I also think it's pretty fantastic that we have news at the touch of a button on our smartphones too.
Yeah.
That's got to be the majority, right, of your subscriptions are
It is
digital.
now. And that's a fairly recent development for us just within the past year or two, where the number of online subscribers exceeded our number of our print subscribers. But that has happened, and we send out a newsletter every morning that goes out with what's in the paper that day, and we're just getting fantastic results from that. I mean, it's over, I hate to quote the exact number, but I believe between Chico, Oroville, and Paradise, 63,000 subscribers. About 2/3 of them open that up and look at it every day. And every month, I think it's 130,000 unique views we get. And you know, you hear about the state of the industry, and newspapers going down. And the flip side is, but probably more people are reading what we did than ever have before, or pretty close to it. So that's the direction, obviously, of the future. But, you know, I'm an old school print guy, so I just love that we still have a printed newspaper. And that there are so many people in our area that still love getting it.
Yeah, and you were telling me you used to print out of that Chico, the building off Park, right?
Yeah, off of East Park.
Now you outsource that to Concord?
It's printed on another press in our company, which it's the East Bay Times Press, and it's in Concord. And for many years, we had our building over there on East Park since, I believe, about 1986 or 1987. And, you know, very nice, very powerful press, the same press there all those years.
So the real presses? Like the old school block print with the, interesting.
Yeah, no, it was, I never got tired of watching it run. And I had a rule for a long time when we hired somebody new. you got to come watch the press
Yeah.
run. And you just, the jaw would drop just watching it. And we printed, for several years, we printed the Reno Gazette-Journal on our press.
Okay.
And somehow it got to Reno every night, even during the winter. We printed our newspaper in Eureka and Redding's paper and several in our company, Vacaville, Vallejo, Monterey, Santa Cruz at different times.
Was there ever a time in your life where you actually screamed, "Stop the
Never
presses"?
have. Never have. Sadly, the press stopped before I got a chance to do that. So, but no, like a lot of things in our industry, just with new technology and consolidation, we were one, to my knowledge, we were one of only 2 newspapers north of Sacramento that still had a press.
Yeah.
And now all of our NorCal papers are printed on the press in Concord,
Right.
which it doesn't take too long to do the press runs as fast as the press is, and then they go out for delivery at night.
There's such a finality about it. Like if there's a typo or something digitally, okay, you can make a quick fix, right, and hope
Right.
that not too many people saw it. But if it goes out in print, I mean, that's just is what it is.
And I like to look at it this way: we're blessed to have a lot of sharp-eyed readers that love pointing out
yeah.
the mistakes.
Oh,
And because, like you said, once it's printed, it's there. And the worst of them, we will hear. I might hear 20, 30, 40 different people, and they all think they were the first one that saw it,
Right.
and
Right.
and I thank them. But that's the beauty of online is, we can always fix it, and
Yes.
it's right forever online.
Right.
And we just kind of have to. We're humans, and people ask, how did that happen? I go,
Right.
well, a human being was sitting in front of a keyboard.
Yeah.
I don't have a better explanation for
Yeah.
that. And they were probably doing work that 30 years ago 4 people were doing. So, I'm impressed that we don't have more. I really am.
It's funny because of course we get those emails. 2 people will take pictures. Look what you spelled wrong on. I totally understand that we are a professional news organization. We have a responsibility to do a professional job, to check our work. I wish people could understand that sometimes that person you see up there anchoring the news, they also produced and wrote the whole show.
Right.
They also built all the lower thirds. They also did this all within, 2.5 hours. Maybe they even went out to a homeless camp and shot the video themselves,
right.
and then came back, put it all together, edited it, and they made one mistake. And that's what you saw.
And that's what you saw. And
Yeah.
And especially with social media now, those things just take off a life on their own. Then
Yes.
it's shared, and thousands of people are laughing at it. And
Right.
And then you just want to read, yeah, well, look at all the typos you have and your complaints about that.
Right,
Know, which is kind of a natural reaction, I guess.
yeah.
But
That's all right.
it's going to happen. It's
Yeah.
human beings make mistakes.
Yep.
Ours are just much more easily noticed than in a lot of
Exactly.
industries.
Yeah, that's what I always have to kind of tell people who work here, like especially when someone's interviewing for a job where they're going to be on camera.
Right.
I always quiz them first, like, listen, do you feel like you have thick skin? Can you take a criticism without taking it to heart? Because it doesn't matter if you get 9 really nice emails complimenting you and saying, you're doing a great job, we appreciate your hard work. Then you get that one email where they say something, whether it's a silly thing like your hair looks stupid, or, we think that you're biased.
I never get that one, but it's
Could be beard hair comments, right?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, for some reason, it's always the ones that are negative that stick. And so I think that if you're going to put yourself out there publicly, you just have to be able to be the kind of person to, not take it home with you.
Yeah, you really do, and I think that's a hard one for anybody, especially the first few years they do it. It was hard on me. I still remember complaints I got from people 40 years ago, but in time you just come to see it. And generally, if you talk to the people who are complaining, they're usually so surprised that you actually called them back or emailed them back. Then they're very nice.
Yeah.
Then they're very nice about it,
Yes.
and it usually ends with, "Oh, I think you guys do a great job," or that sort of thing. And frankly, I've been doing this full time 46 years now, and the beauty of aging. I forget.
Right, right.
The bad
No.
things don't stick with me nearly as much as they used to.
And that totally resonates with me because I get all the emails, right? And so I try to write back to people when they have a criticism or comment, and to, not justify or anything like that, but to say, yeah, thanks for writing in, we appreciate your feedback, give a little bit of an explanation about what the deal was with whatever they're criticizing. And oftentimes it's about me. Maybe they don't like a story that I read or the way I presented something, and maybe will accuse me of being biased, something along those lines. Every time, though, I would say nearly every time I engage with them and hear them out and ask where they're coming from, share a little bit about like where I was coming from. We just have a good, meaningful discussion about it.
Yeah.
And they're not a mean person.
Right.
They just wanted to be heard.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. And a lot of people, they just really enjoy that back and forth with somebody in the media too.
Right.
And like I said, I'm lucky. I've got a good number of people I hear from almost every day, or the worst every week. And we get a lot of good story ideas that way. And sometimes, you might be convinced that, that story was really fair, but you got to, keep an open mind about it, because people will bring up good points and think, that's a good point, we're going to keep that in mind next time. And then they're usually satisfied with that.
Yeah. So in the recent years, more so and more so, we're seeing some people feel like the media is not just reporters who have their own political or personal bias, but like a larger kind of almost like insidious evil agenda of trying to convince people of a certain way.
Yeah.
The fake news concept. I feel like people have a little bit more trust at the local level, but not always. Do you deal with that?
Yeah, very much so. The past few years in particular, the fake news thing, we might see level at a local reporter and they'll be convinced we're in on this big conspiracy on this side or that side. Or another one we will hear is, oh, well, you're owned by a big corporation, you just print what they want to say. And I say, no. I always tell this story. I go, my 46 years in the business, probably the first 35 years, I saw a publisher in the newsroom maybe 5 times. And 4 of the 5 times were announced that the paper had been sold, and the 5th was because we'd won a Pulitzer at a paper I was working at. So we don't get that kind of pressure from above almost ever.
Yeah.
It's like, I want you to report this way or this or that. It's, I think our company does a great job of letting us decide what the local news is and how we should cover it.
Yeah.
And I think that's true for the papers in our chain. So, but we do, there are thoughts like, oh, you journalists are all the same, you're this or that, or you all hate Trump, or you're a Trump lover, or this or that. And again, I hear them all in pretty much equal amounts, which always stuns the people on either side that other people don't agree with the take on it.
So I guess then another question for you, though, is looking at some of the larger papers out there or organizations, does it feel like there are some ownership groups that definitely do have some sort of agenda? Who knows why, but they seem to really be pushing a certain narrative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's definitely happens in the perhaps in the network TV thing to a degree. And I like to watch. I'll watch Fox, and I'll switch over and I'll watch CNN, and then I'll switch over and watch MSNBC, and it's like you're living in 3 different worlds sometimes.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just amazing. This is the biggest story here for 2 days. It's never been mentioned over here.
Yes.
But they're on this, which has never been mentioned over here.
Right.
And then I just remind myself, Mike, that's an opportunity. You can look for an opportunity to tell this story both ways.
Yeah.
Newspaper-wise, it's there are fewer and fewer chains that are owning more and more of the newspapers. But again, we're not. For the most part, we're not getting directives from above on what to report. And again, we're the Chico Enterprise Record. Our main, we're more concerned with covering the local news, and that's a hard one for some readers. I banter back and forth with who want to know, why aren't you taking a stand on this or that? I'm like, well, again, we're the Chico Enterprise Record. We don't have an international reporter. We don't have a national reporter.
Right.
We our bread and butter is the local news, and that's.
Right.
That's what we can hopefully influence it from time to time how we cover it. We're not going to sadly change the world, but we do run letters to the editor from people, letting them state their view on pretty much anything going on around the world. We run pretty much every letter we get, as long as they follow a few basic rules.
Yeah.
Which
I like that.
Yeah, which is a source of some back and forth in its own too. It's like it's hard to draw the line of, is this factual? Is it civil? Is he calling him a name? If I let this one go through, I already know who's going to write a letter and use a slightly stronger word, and there's a lot of back and forth into that.
Yeah.
And I'm on a pretty first name basis with a lot of our letter to the editor writers, and I like them all. I hope they know that. But I only go hard at the people I like that way. So,
So I remember, as a reporter during the pandemic, that was probably the one and only time I ever felt that here at the local level, there was a different news director at the time who I really like and respect. He's moved on somewhere else. But just between the leadership at my company, as well as like the health departments and everything, I almost felt like I was afraid to ask certain questions during that time. That was the first time in my life I felt that way. Like as a journalist, like, oh, don't ask that question because society's going to look down on you. Have you ever felt that way? And did you experience that during COVID to a certain degree?
Yeah, because that's, and that was a tough one in so many ways. You know, it was, you know, obviously first and foremost, people's health and the deaths and everything. You know, it was just a horrible, horrible time. And just the reaction, and I honestly believe from school boards to the state government, national government, everybody was making the best call they could. You know, it was uncharted water to a degree, but obviously a lot of criticisms, many of which I think were warranted. But locally for a newspaper, it meant we weren't working together in a building anymore. And that was a first for me, and it was a first for my staff at the time. It was just a lot of the fun of our business is working together and face to face, and you'll have an idea, and then you'll get a cup of coffee, and you'll get a better idea. And that whole person-to-person camaraderie was gone after that.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, we're on Zoom every day, which I immediately decided I hate this. I hate doing it this way. I want to be back in the building. Since that time, you know, probably half of our staff didn't know it any other way.
Right.
You know, now they're just ecstatic that we have a building we can go to. And so, yeah, that was a tough one. And yeah, I think there are questions, probably particularly from that era, that we're, you know, maybe not as comfortable asking as we should be. I don't know.
Yeah.
I struggle with it sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, I always feel like you should be able to ask whatever questions you want without being shamed. Or I think of like a label we like to use is like conspiracy theorist.
Yeah.
Like, oh, if you ask that, you're a conspiracy theorist.
Right.
That to me is such a dangerous thing in society, to label other ideas as crazy.
Yeah,
right?
no,
To shame
absolutely.
people for their ideas.
Right, and it's a question. It doesn't mean, you know, if I ask you this question, it doesn't mean I believe anything one way or the other.
Right.
I'm trying to get your take on that. And it's a really sad thing for me that just people can't talk to each other, you
Right.
know, and that's something I've written a lot of columns about through the years, just, you know, the importance of, you know, have dinner with somebody, even, I don't care if you voted for different people, you know.
Yeah.
What are you improving by not talking to the person?
Right.
I don't
Right.
understand that at all. 2 or 3 months after becoming editor, I wrote a column and I basically said, first 20 people to respond to this column, come in and have pizza with me. And we'll
Right.
talk about anything you want.
Right.
And, you know, looking back and thinking, wow, that was pretty bold, because I had, you know, names you'd recognize that are, you know, known for being far left in town and far right in town and a few in the middle. And people were asking me, who's coming to that? And I'd throw out the names and they go, are you nuts? You're going to have these people in the same room? And it was fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, people sat down together, and in some cases, I think they kind of worked out some issues between them, and they talked over a lot of things. I've got this big group photo that I'm really proud of that we're all at. And we're going to do that again. We have to do that again. But it's just, that was a lesson to me that don't always listen to people who tell you this can't be done or we can't talk to each
Right.
other. And there were people who refused to come because they found out somebody else was going to be there.
Oh my gosh,
And they missed
yeah.
out. And we need, you know, we don't have to agree, but
Right.
we don't have to hate one another. I
Right.
really believe that, and that's, you know, that's a theme I try to keep getting back to, and I don't know how successful I am, but I
Yeah.
try.
Well, I always think about asking questions as an opportunity to learn,
Yeah.
not as a challenge to you. It's just, hey, an opportunity for me to understand. So
Exactly.
let's keep asking questions.
We will.
Yeah.
I will.
So as we're moving through time and space, AI and everything is just changing the world so incredibly rapidly. How have you seen that impact print journalism?
That's it's something we as editors nationally and publishers talk about quite a bit, and our company comes out with different guidelines on what to do. And our guideline is, you know, check with your editor, use it for research, you know, don't believe it all at first sight.
Yeah.
And the work you publish under your byline had better be your own.
Yeah.
You know, and we keep a close eye on that. But yeah, I'm a guy that started on manual typewriters in this
Right.
business, and I've just seen one technology after another, and I always kind of think, how many more of these am I going to have to learn? And this has kind of been the most recent one that I'm wrapping my arms around, but the more I learn about it, the more I just see it keeps reaching new levels.
Yeah.
And lately I'm just like, this is pretty frightening.
It's because it's happening so fast,
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
Like when I started working here in 2016, if we were out here, there would be camera operators, somebody actually moving the cameras or someone pointing to the anchors. Now I have somebody in my ear.
Yeah.
The cameras are little robots that move themselves. We program them, so we still need humans. But that's just one little example and one small example. But yeah, I mean, I think that AI is so great in terms of functions like Grammarly, right?
Yeah.
Where it could, your reporter still writes the story. It's their thoughts.
Right.
But there's something that kind of, that extra set of eyes, right? Did you spell something wrong? Is your grammar maybe not proper in this
Right.
sentence? That to me is so different than having AI write the whole story for you.
Right, right. And yeah, gosh, it would be rough to be a teacher these days. It's like, is that your work or not?
Yeah.
But it is, and those are tools, and it used to be spell check. Spell check was considered, oh my God, this thing will tell me if I misspelled a word. That was a huge thing.
Right.
But yeah, now it's all these different things. And, I think we have to be wary and be smart and be fair, but, let people know that we're still checking facts, and we're still the ones trying to get it right and not just rely on it. But it is amazing. I mean, it wasn't too many weeks ago. I just played around. I just asked it, write a column in the style of Mike Wolcott on this topic a couple different times, and and some of them just like, okay, I've never once used that word or that word, but yeah, they kind of got the flow down. So it's amazing to see.
It is interesting. So for you, in your capacity as editor-in-chief, are you pretty much just oversight, coaching, guidance? Do you ever go out and report?
Yeah, it kind of depends on the day, and every day we go into a day with a plan, and we meet as a staff, usually online at 9 in the morning. We start checking in with each other. I ask by 8:30. Most of my reporters are doing it by 7:30 or 8. They're just kind of eager to go. We'll have a plan, and then depending if news breaks, then all bets are off.
Yeah.
And I don't really have a typical day. I mean, some days I might be involved with just local news, and some days if we're short, there might be a fire, and all of a sudden, like, oh, hey, I guess I'm the fire reporter today.
Right.
That does happen. Or other days I might be writing a column or in meetings with editors from our different newspapers talking about things. And in Chico, one thing that's under me here still is the NorCal Design Center, which does the design and editing for 12 of our NorCal newspapers. That's based here in Chico. And so I'm going a lot of different directions, but to me it's fun. I never run out of things to do. I'm never once bored. I can't imagine having a job where you would be bored. And I still look forward to doing it every day.
Yeah,
but
me too, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, to answer your question, it just really depends on the day.
Right.
And that's part of the fun. It's like we have a plan, but the plan might go out the window, and we have to pivot and do something else.
Keeps it interesting.
And yesterday we found out at I can't remember what time, but there was that the horrible shooting at the Grand Sierra in Reno, and we found out at one point that local families were staying at the hotel, and we found one who witnessed some of the shooting.
Yeah.
And so it's 4 o'clock. It's like, hey, I think we got a new lead story, and Molly Myers, one of our outstanding, relatively new reporters, still got on that, got a hold of the guy, and we beat the deadline rush. I mean, days like that are, just the get your heart pumping and get you working, and it reminds you why you got in the business. Just finding these stories and telling them.
Right. So as things change, you went from just print to you have digital, right? Have you ever thought about, like with more social media stuff, having your reporters kind of have like an on-air sort of presence in the field? Do you like Facebook Lives, that kind of thing?
We've done that on and off, and we've talked about it some, and we're going to do some more of it. I'm sure it's another thing for us to kind of manage and keep an eye on. I know sports coverage, especially Friday night football, we'll do some live tweeting, I guess is the phrase. We'll do a little more of that. And we're talking about, we don't do much on Instagram, for example, or Facebook. It's automated to a degree, or things that go on there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's the more things we can do like that to get more people's eyes on what we do.
Right.
It's only going to be a win for us. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's the way that people consume news is changing, right? And I kind of feel that we'll just keep doing as many things as possible. I mean, that's what this podcast is about. It's just another way to get maybe more long-form information out to people. It's not for everybody, but some people prefer that. So if Action News Now can present whatever way you want to consume news, if we can give them that option, great. But then it's just a lot more work for everybody. We call our reporters multimedia journalists, not just reporters, because there's multimedias.
No, you're exactly right, and things have come along. I think I didn't see this one coming in
Right.
1982 or whatever, but here we go, and we got to embrace it and keep going.
So this is home for you. You're
Yeah.
from Tehama. You said Flournoy, right?
Flournoy, yeah.
Yeah, my sister and brother-in-law lived out there for years. We
Oh, good.
loved that. It
Yeah,
was a really cool property out there. It's beautiful. Is this where you're going to stay?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, when I was a kid, I'd ride my bike a mile every morning down to the Flournoy store because I had to get there early because they had 3 copies of the San Francisco Chronicle there.
Okay.
And I always wanted to get it and take it home and read the sports section. And in the back of my brain at some point, I remember thinking this would be such a fun job to do this, to work for the Sporting Green, and I got to do that.
Yeah.
I was in the Bay Area 23 years at 3 different newspaper companies down there. The last 8 at the Chronicle, and that was what I wanted to do, and I did it, and I came back up here, and I was fortunate to find another newspaper opportunity, which I wasn't really expecting when I moved back up, and that led to an opportunity to be the editor of this newspaper. So to me, I'm like thinking, oh, this is great. I'm happy to ride this out into the sunset, hopefully within a few years here.
Yeah.
But nah, this is home. It's good to be here.
Yeah. Okay. As you move into like whatever the next phase in life is for you, do you think you'll always sort of have news in, on your plate? Like I always kind of think maybe like I'll retire someday, but be a freelance journalist.
If it was something I'd want to do,
Yeah.
I mean, I feel lucky in my career that anytime I've had a job where if I wrote, I kind of got to write. It was usually columns. I've done a lot of column writing, pretty much any place I've worked. And I enjoy that more than, say, if I was a staff reporter who, okay, Mike, today you're going to write about this and that. And God bless the staff I have who do that, and they're really good at it. That was never my, the thing that attracted me to the business was that. I kind of wanted to be able to big picture think and plan how as a staff we might do things, and then just kind of have my own take in the form of a column or editorial or whatever. So if it was something like that I liked to do,
Right.
or if I just wrote something for fun once in a while, I could see doing that. But this business, as you know, it's a lot of nights, a lot of weekends, and you look back and you think at periods in your life, wow, I just really missed out on living.
Right.
And I'm blessed now in my job that I get a mixed living in. The life balance isn't too bad, and I get home and I look at our Jeep and I look at RV and I look at my wife and I just think of all these things we want to do,
Right.
or all the things I want to do. So I'm looking forward to
Yeah.
that. Maybe I'll write about that stuff. I don't know.
I've been trying to work on that myself too. Like as soon as I wake up, I'm in news mode, right?
Yeah.
But I really try to do this kind of cutoff, like 6:30 p.m. If there's no breaking news, I have a couple of hours until my husband goes to bed early because he's in construction. So I just try to be, 2 hours of just my family, just my home life,
Yeah,
right?
that's
You have
important.
to have the balance because when you're in this job, when you're here, your mind is not going anywhere else.
Right.
You're very focused. So.
Right. No, that's important, and just different sized newspapers I've worked at through the years, and I've seen a lot of people, literally just work themselves to death. In a couple of cases, dying at the office, and it's just because it can engulf you. You care about it so much, and there's always other things to do, and I always promise myself I'm never bringing a cot into the office because I've known too many editors that did, and you could just see their health just go downhill from there. But no, it's important, and I try to remind my staff of that. And if we have, say, someone whose job is working Saturday, I say that's not a life sentence. If you got a wedding you want to go to, if you want to go out of town with your buddies, whatever, let me know. Give us some notice. We'll figure it out. We'll get it covered.
Yeah.
And so I've kind of had it can sound like a conflicting philosophy, but it's very much family first with me. But it's also, we're going to get the news covered. So, a little bit of a juggling act there, but I think we're pretty successful at that.
Okay. Well, the last question for you.
Okay.
If somebody is considering a career in journalism, what do you think the most compelling reason to and not to embark on that journey would be?
Well, a couple of my favorite days of the year are when I get asked to Chico State to speak to the Orion or a writing class or whatever. And I always open with the same line, which is basically, you got to love this job to do it. Because if you don't, you're going to be miserable.
Yeah.
You're just absolutely going to be miserable, unless you love it. And then you'll be happy at it. And I'm a big believer, and you can still make a good living doing this. You're going to put up with some hard times, but I think the rewards are worth it. And it's like, if you like I wouldn't even say if you like talking to people, because I know a lot of people in this business that had a hard time with that when they got started.
Yeah.
But it opened it up to them. They learned.
Right.
And it's like, if you have a natural curiosity about things, and in our case, if you enjoy writing, it's a fun job. It's a great job. I really believe that. And but you got to like it, and you got to be kind of thick-skinned to do it.
Yep.
And, and we play an important role. Again, as I often say, it's like, without us, who would put on the sports banquet we put on every year? 50 years we've been putting on this annual high school sports and Hall of Fame banquet. And who would cover the local meetings? And who would write about, things that without local small town reporters asking questions would never come to light?
Yeah.
And there's so many examples just the past few years for that. So anybody watching and listening, if any of that thought, wow, I think I'd like that, check it out.
Yeah.
Check it out. And we're blessed that we have Chico State and the Orion here, because that's probably 2/3 of our hires, that's where they come from, and thank God.
Us too. Yep. All right. Well, Mike, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time. It's been great talking to you.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening today. I decided to offer this podcast after enough of you let me know that you wanted a deeper dive into certain stories than you get on our TV broadcasts. We elect certain people to represent our voice, but who are they really? My hope is that this podcast answers that question. I love your feedback, and I want to know who you'd like to hear from next. Just fill out that comment section and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or Spotify.